Welcome to the Discourse Analyzer AI Toolkit, where articles come alive. You're listening to the audio version of our article. For the full text and an interactive experience, check out the link in the description below. Interact with any selection using our AI assistant to enhance your understanding. Let's explore.
Legal settings in discourse analysis. Interactive assistant legal settings refer to the environments where law-related interactions occur, including courtrooms, law offices, police interrogations, legislative hearings, and mediation sessions. In discourse analysis, these settings are examined to understand how language is used to construct legal arguments, negotiate meaning, assert authority, and manage power relations. Language plays a crucial role in shaping legal processes and outcomes, as it influences how facts are interpreted, how credibility is established, and how justice is administered. Discourse analysis in legal settings explores the formal and institutionalized nature of legal language, the rhetorical strategies employed by legal professionals, and the interactional dynamics between participants such as lawyers, judges, defendants, and witnesses. By analyzing the language used in these settings, discourse analysts can uncover how legal power is exercised, how certain voices are privileged over others, and how justice is linguistically constructed and communicated. Key features of legal settings in discourse analysis. 1. Institutional language and formality. Legal settings are characterized by highly formalized and institutionalized language. Discourse analysis examines how this formal language functions to maintain order, convey authority, and control the flow of legal interactions. Example: a judge might say, "The court will now hear the testimony of the defendant," using formal, institutionalized language to direct the proceedings. Discourse analysis would explore how this language reinforces the judge's authority and maintains the structure of the legal process. 2. Rhetorical strategies and persuasion. In legal settings, rhetorical strategies are key to persuading judges, juries, or mediators. Lawyers and other legal professionals use language to construct persuasive arguments, frame evidence, and appeal to emotion, logic, or credibility. Example: a defense attorney might argue, "The prosecution has failed to provide any substantial evidence linking my client to the crime," emphasizing the absence of key evidence. Discourse analysis would examine how this rhetorical strategy seeks to undermine the prosecution's case and persuade the jury toward a verdict of not guilty. 3. Power dynamics and authority. Legal settings are hierarchical, with clear power dynamics that influence how language is used and who controls the discourse. Judges, lawyers, and law enforcement officers typically have more control over the flow of interaction than defendants or witnesses, which affects how testimony is delivered and interpreted. Example: a police officer might say during an interrogation, "You need to answer my questions truthfully," asserting their authority over the suspect. Discourse analysis would explore how this language reflects power imbalances and how suspects respond to or resist these power dynamics. 4. Framing of legal issues. In legal discourse, framing refers to how legal professionals present facts, evidence, and arguments in ways that favor their position. Discourse analysis investigates how framing shapes the narrative of a case, influencing how the judge or jury interprets the facts and applies the law. Example: in a personal injury case, a plaintiff's lawyer might frame the defendant's actions as reckless rather than negligent, emphasizing intent over carelessness. Discourse analysis would explore how this framing strategy affects the interpretation of liability and responsibility. 5. Questioning techniques. Questioning techniques are a fundamental part of legal discourse, particularly in courtroom settings and police interrogations. Discourse analysis examines how questions are structured to elicit specific responses, control the narrative, or challenge a witness's credibility. Example: in a cross-examination, a lawyer might ask, "Isn't it true that you contradicted yourself earlier?" using a leading question to challenge the witness's testimony. Discourse analysis would explore how this questioning technique is used to shape the narrative and cast doubt on the witness's reliability. 6. Multimodality and evidence presentation. In legal settings, communication is often multimodal, involving not just spoken language but also written documents, visual aids, and physical evidence. Discourse analysis explores how these different modes of communication work together to construct meaning and influence legal outcomes. Example: a lawyer might use a visual timeline of events during a trial to complement their verbal argument. Discourse analysis would investigate how the combination of verbal and visual elements strengthens the lawyer's case and helps the jury understand complex information. 7. Legal jargon and accessibility. Legal language often includes jargon that can be inaccessible to laypeople, such as jurors or defendants. Discourse analysis examines how legal jargon is used, and how it either clarifies or obscures meaning, particularly for those who are unfamiliar with legal terms. Example: a lawyer might refer to mens rea, criminal intent, during a trial, which may be difficult for jurors to understand without explanation. Discourse analysis would explore how the use of jargon impacts comprehension and participation, potentially creating barriers for non-expert participants. 8. Negotiation and mediation. In settings like arbitration or mediation, language is used to negotiate agreements or settlements. Discourse analysis looks at how participants use language to navigate conflict, propose solutions, and reach consensus in a legal context. Example: during a mediation session, a mediator might say, "Let's focus on finding common ground where both parties can agree," guiding the negotiation process. Discourse analysis would explore how this language facilitates resolution by encouraging cooperative dialogue and reducing adversarial tension. Methods for analyzing legal discourse. 1. Critical discourse analysis, CDA. Critical discourse analysis, CDA, focuses on how language in legal settings reflects broader social structures and power relations. In legal discourse, CDA explores how language either reinforces or challenges social inequalities, such as race, class, or gender disparities within the justice system. Example: a CDA of courtroom interactions might reveal how language used by judges or lawyers reflects racial bias, such as when defendants from marginalized backgrounds are addressed differently from wealthier defendants. The analysis would focus on how legal discourse contributes to the reproduction of social inequalities. 2. Conversation analysis. Conversation analysis examines the micro-level structure of interactions in legal settings, such as turn-taking, interruptions, and the sequencing of questions and responses. This method helps to uncover how courtroom or interrogation dialogue is managed and how power is negotiated through interaction. Example: conversation analysis might examine how lawyers interrupt witnesses during cross-examination to control the narrative or prevent certain information from being disclosed. The analysis would reveal how conversational tactics shape the discourse and affect the delivery of testimony. 3. Frame analysis. Frame analysis looks at how legal issues are framed in discourse, focusing on how different narratives are constructed to favor particular interpretations of the law. This method is useful for understanding how lawyers and judges present facts, evidence, and arguments in ways that shape the outcome of a case. Example: a frame analysis might examine how a defense attorney frames a self-defense argument in a murder trial, portraying the defendant as acting out of necessity rather than malice. The analysis would explore how this framing influences the jury's interpretation of the defendant's actions. 4. Narrative analysis. Narrative analysis focuses on the stories told in legal settings, such as the narratives presented by lawyers in opening and closing statements or the accounts given by witnesses. This method explores how these narratives are constructed, how they shape legal outcomes, and how they reflect broader cultural or social norms. Example: a lawyer might tell a compelling story in their closing argument about the defendant's difficult upbringing to elicit sympathy from the jury. Narrative analysis would examine how this story influences the jury's emotions and decision-making, framing the defendant as a product of their circumstances. Examples of legal settings in discourse analysis. Example 1. Cross-examination in criminal trials. During cross-examination, a defense attorney might ask a witness, "Isn't it true that you didn't see the defendant clearly that night?" Discourse analysis would explore how this leading question shapes the witness's response and introduces doubt about the reliability of the testimony. Example 2. Police interrogations and power dynamics. In a police interrogation, an officer might say, "We already know you were at the scene. Just tell us why you did it," framing the suspect as guilty and pressuring them to confess. Discourse analysis would investigate how this language reflects the power dynamics of the interrogation and how suspects may resist or comply with this framing. Example 3. Jury instructions and legal jargon. A judge might instruct the jury by saying, "You must decide whether the prosecution has proven the defendant's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt," using formal legal language. Discourse analysis would examine how this language is interpreted by jurors, particularly if they struggle to understand the legal standard of beyond a reasonable doubt. Example 4. Negotiation in mediation sessions. In a mediation setting, a lawyer might say, "We're willing to negotiate on the damages, but the liability is non-negotiable," signaling a compromise. Discourse analysis would explore how this language frames the negotiation and how the parties use language to move toward a settlement. Example 5. Legal documents and written discourse. In legal contracts or briefs, language is often formal and precise, with terms like hereinafter or party of the first part. Discourse analysis would investigate how this written legal language serves to clarify, protect legal rights, or obscure meaning for non-experts, and how it reflects the formal nature of legal communication. Challenges in analyzing legal settings through discourse. 1. Complexity of legal language. Legal discourse is often dense and filled with specialized terminology, making it challenging for discourse analysts to fully understand and interpret without in-depth knowledge of legal systems and terminology. 2. Power imbalances. Legal settings inherently involve power imbalances between legal professionals and non-experts, e.g., defendants or witnesses. Discourse analysts must carefully consider how these power dynamics shape the interactions and influence the participants' ability to engage meaningfully in the discourse. 3. Cultural and contextual variability. Legal discourse can vary significantly across different cultures and legal systems. Discourse analysts must be aware of these cultural and contextual differences to avoid misinterpreting language use and legal norms in international or cross-cultural legal settings. Conclusion. Discourse analysis in legal settings provides valuable insights into how language shapes legal processes, influences power dynamics, and affects justice outcomes. By analyzing courtroom interactions, legal negotiations, police interrogations, and the framing of legal arguments, discourse analysts can uncover the ways in which language is used to construct legal narratives, assert authority, and persuade judges, juries, or mediators. Understanding the role of discourse in legal contexts is crucial for improving communication within the justice system, ensuring fairness, and addressing the social and cultural factors that influence legal interactions. Frequently asked questions. What does discourse analysis in legal settings examine? Discourse analysis in legal settings examines how language is used in interactions within courtrooms, law offices, police interrogations, and other legal environments. It focuses on how language constructs legal arguments, asserts authority, manages power relations, and influences legal outcomes. Why is language so important in legal settings? Language shapes the interpretation of facts, establishes credibility, and conveys authority in legal settings. The way legal professionals and participants use language can significantly impact how justice is perceived and administered, affecting the outcomes of legal proceedings. What are some key features of discourse analysis in legal settings? Institutional language and formality. Analyzes how formal language maintains order and conveys authority. Rhetorical strategies and persuasion. Investigates how arguments are crafted to influence judges, jurors, or mediators. Power dynamics and authority. Examines how language reflects hierarchical structures and power imbalances. Framing of legal issues. Looks at how cases are framed to shape interpretations. Questioning techniques. Studies how questions are structured to guide or challenge testimony. Multimodality. Considers how spoken, written, and visual communication combine to affect outcomes. Legal jargon and accessibility. Explores how specialized language can impact understanding. What role does questioning play in legal discourse? Questioning is pivotal for eliciting information, framing narratives, and influencing perceptions in courtrooms and interrogations. The structure of questions can guide responses, challenge credibility, and shape testimonies, directly impacting how cases are presented and interpreted. How do power dynamics manifest in legal discourse? Legal settings are hierarchical, with judges, lawyers, and law enforcement holding significant authority over defendants and witnesses. This power is communicated through language, with formal instructions, controlled questioning, and the use of legal jargon maintaining these dynamics. How does framing influence legal discourse? Framing involves presenting facts and arguments in specific ways that favor a particular interpretation. For instance, a lawyer might frame an action as reckless to highlight intent and strengthen a case for culpability. This shapes how judges, jurors, and audiences understand the legal issue. What challenges do analysts face when studying legal discourse? Complexity of legal language. Legal jargon and procedural language can be difficult to interpret without specialized knowledge. Power imbalances. The hierarchical nature of legal settings complicates the analysis of participation and fairness. Cultural and contextual variability. Legal practices and language vary across cultures and legal systems, requiring contextual awareness. How is critical discourse analysis, CDA, applied in legal settings? CDA explores how language in legal discourse reinforces or challenges social power structures and inequalities, such as racial or socioeconomic biases. For instance, it might analyze whether defendants from different backgrounds are addressed or described differently in court, revealing systemic disparities. What are examples of legal discourse analysis in practice? Cross-examinations. Analyzing how lawyers' questions shape witness testimony. Police interrogations. Examining the language used to exert pressure or elicit confessions. Jury instructions. Investigating how formal language directs jurors' understanding. Mediations. Analyzing language that promotes negotiation and compromise. Why is understanding legal discourse important? Understanding how language functions in legal settings helps improve communication and fairness within the justice system. It ensures that interactions are more transparent, equitable, and accessible, and highlights potential biases or barriers faced by marginalized participants.